Do you find yourself saying yes to everything and just don't know where to draw the line? In this video, I take you behind the scenes of the Rustic Songbird Podcast, where I interview Natalie Runion, who's a worship pastor at New Life Church in Colorado Springs. We talk about setting goals, priorities, and creating boundaries as a creative person. Natalie shares some awesome advice for anyone who's feeling burned out and just has a hard time saying no. I hope you enjoy this episode of the Rustic Songbird Podcast, and I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel for even more conversations like this coming soon. Real quick, I want to let you know about a free challenge that I've put together for songwriters to help build your confidence and put yourself out there and to show up at your best, because perfection is overrated. To join this free challenge, go to rusticsongbird.com/challenge. Hello, how are you?
Hey, Natalie. Tell me about your hike. How was it?
It was so good. We live in a place called Helen Hunt Falls, which it's Colorado Springs, Colorado. But we have a place in Manitou Springs called Helen Hunt Falls, and it is beautiful. It's like this hike up steps, and because we had a storm last night, it was just filled. So it was stunning.
That's amazing. Yeah. So when you live that close to nature like that, you have to go. You have to enjoy it.
Yeah, and coming from Ohio, we just never had that. And now
mountains,
it's like
waterfalls.
Yes. And we're 3 years in now, and we still act like tourists. So
that's totally fine.
Yeah. We're we take all the pictures still and make people take our pictures and all the things.
Yeah.
How's motherhood?
Awesome.
How's motherhood going?
It's crazy. It really depends on the day.
Yeah.
Honestly, or even moment by moment.
Yeah.
I've gotten to that point where I'm it's not a bad day. It's just there's stressful moments, and then there's really sweet moments.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm in the roller coaster of toddlerhood, where I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old at the same time. We got diapers and potty training happening, discipline, just in the thick of it.
Yep.
And so it's definitely a sanctification process. I feel it really increases your prayer life.
Yes.
When you have kids, because you're Lord, just help me. Just help. I need all the help, right? And you just realize so much more, I think, about God's heart and him as the father, and how he looks at us, and we want our own way and we want it right now, and he's just wait, because I've got something better for you. And so I feel even just in the last couple of years, as I've become a mom, that has really changed in my mind of who God is as a father. And so I'm learning so much. I don't feel like I've got it all together. I feel like I'm just in it.
Yeah.
And doing the best with what I have. Yeah.
It's daily grace.
Yeah. And you have 2 girls, right?
Yep.
And
Annabelle,
how old are they right now?
She's 11. Annabelle's 11, and Selah is 7. And so Annabelle's going into 6th grade. So junior high starts next year, and then Selah will be in 3rd. So we're finally out of that point where I feel I have to watch everything that they're doing. They can go play outside and I don't have to worry about.
Yeah, they're more responsible and independent.
Yeah, but then there's just a whole other level of worry, right? Now I'm what are you watching? Who are you talking to?
Yeah.
So that was just a different level of parenting.
I can understand. Yeah. I had a big family growing up. So I was the second oldest of 6 kids. And so I had younger kids than me, and I was helping around the house and stuff. And so I got a lot of experience around babies. And then I was always around other big families and stuff. So there were always babies, but it's different when it's your kid.
Oh.
There is no handing them back. You're in it 24/7. It's you're the end of the line.
Yeah.
And it's it's draining, literally.
It is. Yeah. And I find myself tired differently. Because I think about things so much now. I'm
so more mentally tired than physically tired.
And I mean, it's little things Annabelle is, going through puberty, and things are happening in her. And so she's asking me questions about boys and what her friends are talking about. And I just go to bed at night and I'm oh.
Yeah. what is she watching? What is she hearing? Like, what's
Yeah.
happening to my baby?
It's right. It's totally different. So,
Oh man.
yeah. Well, thanks for having me here.
Yeah, thanks for being willing to come on my podcast. It
Yeah.
is for songwriters and musicians. I've had a bunch of the Brave Worship girls on this show, and
Love it.
I've had Christy on the show to talk about it. And so just getting different perspectives of people that are in music, that are
Yeah.
leading worship, songwriting, recording, doing all that, because I want to encourage people that are either just getting started or that are in it but want to get better. And so I'm trying to interview people that are at all different levels, different paths, different experiences, just to speak into people's lives. And my spiritual gift is encouragement. So when I realized people just wanted to be encouraged, I was all over it. I'm like, yes, bring it on. Like, I'll give you encouragement all day long.
Yeah.
And I saw on your Instagram that you said you were an Enneagram 7. I was like, ooh, this is going to be good.
Yeah.
Love it.
Which as I get older, I'm realizing like there are, like, I feel like we lose a little bit of that adventure and that, because I'm 40. So I realize like I'm kind of, I'm different than most of my peers who are 40, which can.
You feel like you have like a more free spirit?
I do.
Of your personality.
And even the way that we do ministry, the way we raise our kids, the way we just like life. Like I realized, like last night, my kids want to do these things called all night challenges. As long as they don't leave their rooms, I don't care what I don't care. Like,
right.
Anna Basela was playing Barbies until like midnight the other night. And I kept thinking, she should go to bed, but we're in the middle of a pandemic, right? And
like,
I'm like,
everything's up in the air. It's like, whatever.
And so it's just really like learning how to navigate parenting and ministry and relationships as a 7. You also wings 8, there's a little bit of this, like I do have
like an aggressive side too.
It is. But it's how I get things done,
Yeah. I'm in like that in a similar way. I'm a 2. So I'm driven to like help people, but I'm also like a wing 3. So I'm an achiever. I want to like achieve things to help people.
Yes, it's true.
So it's like kind of similar. I kind of see where you're coming from.
Yes, absolutely. Oh,
yeah. So I thought what we could talk about is maybe just because you do have so many things going on that you're like juggling and balancing, maybe talking about how you prioritize and how you plan and schedule out like the structure, and then also how you work within a structure, as things change. So I think that'd be really helpful for people. I know it'd be helpful for me because I've been in that space of like, how can I, do more with less, basically. Like, how can I get the most done in the least amount of time and do what's most important first and that kind of thing. So if you're on board with that, I'd really like to hear from your experience too.
Yeah, it's good, because I think when we're in our 20s, right, we are taught to say yes to everything. It's like every opportunity that comes your way, you never know what the Lord's going to do with it. You never know what door that could open or lead to. And so I remember in my 20s just like, yes. Of course I'll go and do that, and I'll sing here, and I'll lead worship there, and I'll do all the things. And I realized as I got older that it was more and more complicated as newer responsibilities filled my plate to know what to say yes to. And I had to go back. I realized I was doing this every time I got overwhelmed. It was going back to my original yes, which was to the Lord, right? And my original yes was never to a job, to a platform, to a position. It was always to the Lord. And so in this season of my life, one of the things he's teaching me to do is to really look at the things that he's put before me and ask, is it in alignment with the mission and vision, not just of the organization like New Life Church where I work, but in alignment with the mission and vision of our family? Because now it's not just me. And so I think in our 20s, it's just us, right? And we're like, I'm running towards that. And I do think for some of us, especially more outgoing, love to be busy people, the challenge is narrowing it down to the things that the Lord is asking us to do, and not just because it's an opportunity.
Yeah, right? It's hard to know what to say yes to, especially when there's lots of good things. And so I've read the book, The Best Yes.
Yes.
Really a big eye-opener for me of saying no to something good is saying yes to something that's better, something that's the best. Like realizing that when I say yes to something like doing something outside my home, I'm saying no to like more time with family. And so there's trade-offs
Right.
with that. And so I'm learning the balance of like, okay, well, how busy do I want to be? How much do I want to commit? And also like, how much do I want to protect? So what has that looked like for you, maybe over the last couple years?
I think the biggest thing, Henry Cloud has a book called Boundaries. It's an old book.
Yes, I got the audiobook of that. It is so good.
One of the things that he says in that book that stuck out to me so much and actually has guided me as an adult in ministry and as an artist is that we're not responsible for the way that people respond to our boundaries, but we are responsible for putting those boundaries in place. And I think what happened for me is that people got used to me saying yes to everything. That if somebody needed something, they could call me and I would be like right there, right, ready to serve, ready to do what, roll my sleeves up, get in the dirt, do it. And I started getting to this point where I wasn't like a people pleaser, but I hated to disappoint people. And in ministry, especially smaller organizations and churches, when they see someone who's willing, they're gonna tap into that because they appreciate that, but they don't mean to take advantage of it. But people will. If we keep saying yes, people will keep calling us. And I learned that I couldn't be afraid of hurting people's feelings, but I did have to communicate my boundaries. And so it got to the point for me in my 30s, and now that I'm 40, where there are some things that I just have to lay down pretty honestly when I'm asked to do something. Like you said, what am I going to say yes to? And what am I saying no to in order to say yes to that thing? And then also, what is it that I need now in my 30s that maybe I didn't need in my 20s from that yes? So maybe it's financial. Maybe I need to be paid to do this thing. Maybe I need somebody to watch my children when I'm doing this thing. So our priorities as we get older, they change from when we were first stepping in. So for me, it's been knowing what my boundary is and not being afraid to lay it out from the very beginning of the conversation before I say yes. And not being afraid to like disappoint people, because I think people respect boundaries when we know what we're doing, you know?
Yeah. And I think there's ways that you can approach it and say it that, not that you have to explain yourself, but say it in a way that's just clear.
Yes.
And firm and not like beating around the bush. I think when we start to like negotiate, then people think, oh, well, we can work it out. And you're like, no, I'm really trying to say no. So just saying no is enough. Like no is a complete sentence.
Yes. And I think we have to be unapologetic in it too. I think that for a lot of us, we've worked hard to be where we are, right?
Yeah.
Many of us have been in ministry for a long time. We've been songwriting for a long time. We got college degrees. We've worked in the workforce a long time. We now understand what it takes to make our businesses run, to make ministries work, to make our own businesses as songwriters and our own daily schedules work. I think it shows a little bit of initiative to say, that's just not in alignment with where I'm headed right now. That doesn't mean it's a no forever. It's just right now, it's not fitting into what the Lord is asking of me as a wife, a mom, and as a ministry leader, director, songwriter, you fill in the blanks,
Yeah. So at this point, I'm just wondering, this is kind of like where my head is at. I'm kind of at a month to month basis right now of like making plans, planning things out. Like, I'm worship leading for a church right now, and I'll plan out my set list for the month. And that has been huge instead of going week to week, because I never know if I'm going to be able to work through a nap time or not. And so, when I was younger and didn't have kids and I could, wait to the last minute, I could procrastinate and make it happen. But I'm at the point now where it's like, I have to plan ahead, plan for a time, and plan a backup just in case. Like there needs to be so much more buffer. So what does that planning process look like for you right now, as far as like scheduling things in and making sure that what needs to get done gets done?
Yeah. So, and especially in quarantine right now, because we're not like, I work full time at a church. We don't have office hours. So if you're someone like myself who's a free spirit, you've probably not been someone that's carried a calendar or had a planner, or your phone is for the most part what keeps you in alignment. And what I've learned for me is that mornings are the one time that I have before my kids wake up, before my 9 to 5 starts, from that 6 o'clock in the morning until about 9, that is the time for me to get my ducks in a row, to have my quiet time, to really spend time with the Lord, because that 6 to 9, could make or break what you say yes to for the rest of the day or the week. And it can also set you up for whether you're going to feel stressed on Thursday, or if you're going to feel like your week has kind of opened up because you've taken care of some things in the morning. So I have, on top of doing ministry, I songwrite. I have an activewear business that I work with as well. I get up before my church day starts with my 9 to 5, and I do all of those detailed things from 6 to 9. But I will say that time with the Lord will make or break how the rest of my day goes. And I used to think, I'll just do it at nighttime, or I'll just do it at lunch break or whatever. But I have learned about myself that if I don't make that intentional time just for me and the Lord, for me to ask him, what do you want me to say yes to today? How do you want me to gauge my emotions about different meetings I'm getting ready to go into? I really will self-destruct if I don't have that 3-hour window. So that's been my life-saving time frame, especially in quarantine.
Yeah, I think routines are so important to do the same thing every day, or at least have some basic things that you can have in place, because I think having some structure allows you the freedom to work within the structure. And so it might change during different seasons. Like over the last few months, people have been working at home instead of being in an office. And so that's shifting routines and everything's been up in the air. But looking forward and moving forward, we need to have routines in place to be able to, keep making progress. And so I've been thinking about how can I do little things that would change in a big way? Little things I could do right now, either adding or taking away from my routine, that will make a bigger impact. I'm trying to look more towards the future of 6 months from now, a year from now. How will my life be different if I wake up a little earlier, or if I add something into my routine, or even take away? And so just looking forward, I think it's really overrated to have that space to think, to plan, to pray, and really to listen to what the Lord has for you, because everyone else has an agenda for our life, and we've got to figure out what's God's agenda for our life. So how do you think about that?
It's like a daily conversation with the Lord. And I think journaling has been the one space that I've had, because not all of us can sit down and do songwriting sessions. Not all of us can get on Skype or, FaceTime and do creative processes where we're able to do 100% what we want all the time. And I think on days where I don't get to be creative, days where I'm doing 100% admin, not doing the thing that really fills my tank, when we talk about our love languages, when we have 9 to 5 jobs where people are relying on us to do things that necessarily aren't our strength, but they're still part of our job, we have to be responsible for carving out that time in our day to really seek the Lord and say, okay, today I didn't get to do the things that I really love to do, but Lord, I know that you have this thing that you called me to do. You've given me these gifts. How do you want me to use them today? And I think for worship leaders in particular, right now is challenging because not all of us are getting to be on a platform. We're not getting to lead worship in a physical building. And so we have one of two reactions. We either stop doing it because there's not been an outlet given to us in this time, or we will start making things happen. And I think it's the middle ground right now for a lot of us of sitting down with the Lord and journaling out, how do you want me to use my gifts today? How do you want me to use what you've given me today to serve your people? But more than that, how do you want me to use them to serve you? And that's been my process in this quarantine in particular, is what do you want me to do with what I've been given today? And if that is singing over my children at bedtime, or sending somebody a note with just some really nice, encouraging words from the scriptures to let them know that I've been praying for them. Those have been kind of where I've started, but honestly, it's come from journaling. The Lord has given me such brilliant ideas just in surrendering to Him this time. And I can tell on days when I don't do it because I feel exhausted, I feel worn down, or I feel not creative, uninspired. And that's honestly been, journaling has been what has kept me vibrant in this season.
I love that. And just writing down your thoughts as they come to you, allowing yourself to ask those questions. I think those are really good questions of what do you want me to do today? How do you want me to use the gifts you've given me specifically today. And even in little ways like that, singing for your kids, or, you know, sending an encouraging note. Those are little things that make a big difference. Like I'm realizing that even just raising little kiddos, like if they want to go slide for 10 minutes, that might be their favorite memory of the day. And I'm like, you know what, I can do this for a few minutes, and it doesn't have to take all day to make their day. And so I think sending an encouraging note, or making a phone call, or like doing the next thing that needs to be done, that's a huge part of what I've been learning too, is like, what's the next thing to move me closer to my goals? It doesn't have to be a big thing, and it doesn't have to be all the things, because it's easy to get overwhelmed when you think of the big picture. But if, like you said, if you break it down to what do I need to do today, it makes it more doable.
Yes. And our pastor says something that really convicted me, because we're, as creatives, we're forward thinking, right? We're always thinking like what needs to happen, what songs need to be written, what blogs need to come out, what's the church down the street doing. And that's good. We're visionaries. That's really, you know, exciting to think about. But there are times, and I think right now, I specifically in this season feel a little stuck, right? Because it's like, we can't see past May 31st right now. We're like, what's opening, whatever. But even before this, I would find myself getting antsy sometimes and being like, okay, Lord, what's next? What's next? Like, what's the big thing next? And our pastor says that whenever you don't know what to do next, think about the last thing the Lord asked you to do and ask yourself, have I done it?
Oh, that's good.
There's a lot of times, like singing to our kids, or writing that note, or going in and singing with our acoustic guitars at a nursing home. And the Lord has put that on our heart. And maybe we haven't done it because we thought, oh, that's just silly, or that's just, you know, they didn't really care if I do that. But it was a prompting from the Holy Spirit that we kind of ignored or whatever. And so he's had me go back into my journals and look through things and say, oh my gosh, I know the Lord was telling me to do that, and I didn't do it. And so in this season, I've been kind of asking the Lord, what is it that you've said you've wanted me to do that I haven't done? And I've been trying to step into those things, because I think the next big thing for all of us, we don't know what that's going to be. But like you said, we do have control over the next 5 minutes, the next 10 minutes, like what we're about to do with our kids, with our family, with our friends. We do have access to that right now. You know?
Yeah, I was hearing somebody else on a podcast talking about how with everything being shut down, we lost our sense of control, but really we're realizing we were never in control of those outside things anyway.
No.
And so we're having to deal with it, but we are in control of ourselves, our thoughts, our actions, and that's still true. And so even in our present situation, like just being in that and realizing, what do I need to do today? What's the most important? Like asking yourself those questions, because it's really interesting how the brain works. I've been studying like mindset and how you think, basically, and how that determines what you do, and it's all connected. But as far as mindset, what are some things that have helped you, like maybe some things that you repeat to yourself, or things that you kind of coach yourself when you're getting discouraged?
But one of my favorite scriptures is that he who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it to the very, very end. And whenever I start to feel like I'm not good enough, whenever I feel like I'm not doing enough, the Lord takes me back to that scripture. And I think the Lord is going to finish in me what he started. No matter how he plans to accomplish that, if I'm a willing vessel, he will finish what he wants to finish in each and every one of us. And it's always according to his plan. It's never according to ours, which is the control piece, right? Yeah. And so I do wake up a lot and I do say that, Lord, you have permission to finish in me what you began at conception. Whatever that means, however you want to do that today, I know you're faithful to complete that. Not me, not my friends, not the people that have given me opportunities, but him. I say that a lot. I also will kind of do these self-declarations, like my name is in rooms that my feet have not even stepped into. Because I think for a lot of us right now, we do balance. We go back and forth between like, I'm really happy with where I am, but I know there's more. I'm really happy with where I am. And so I do state those things. I pray for abundance. I ask for the Lord to supply all of my needs according to his riches and his glory, knowing that my needs and his definition of my needs are different. But that surrender. And so I think it is an every morning thing, being in the Word of God. And if you don't know what to read, read Psalms. I mean, truly, Psalms is like the one book where if you're kind of like, I don't know what to do today, you just get in Psalms and pick one and just start praying that Psalm. And that has really, there are some Psalms in there that talk about what can man do to me? I'm not afraid. And, all of those, all those different Psalms that just begin to like speak hope into even some caves that some of us might feel in, or the valley of death that we might find ourselves in, but being reminded that it's just a shadow can shift your entire day. So praying the Psalms, being in the Psalms, and then also praying blessings. There are a couple blessing books out there right now where if you're just kind of feeling overwhelmed with employment, with your husband's employment, your wife's employment, just beginning to go through your house and speak blessing, that the Lord is going to provide and he is going to protect. All of those things has just made such a difference in my life as I've gotten older and realized I'm out of control.
Yeah, but we know who is in control, and he's still going to be in control. And so I see right now as an opportunity to make those shifts that needed to happen anyway, and to dig deeper into things, like into the reasons why we're doing things, and make sure that we are, following the promptings of the Holy Spirit and not following anything out of fear or even just what we think is a good idea,
right? But
realizing that he has greater plans for us, and so walking in that. I know for me in my music journey, when I've followed the prompting of the Holy Spirit, that's when everything fell together in amazing timing, like amazing doors opening, connections, like things that I could have never put together. And then anytime I try to make it happen, there's every single obstacle and it just does not work. Right. And so I have seen clearly, like, okay, this is the Lord, he's doing it. I just need to walk in what he's doing. And then, okay, he's obviously showing me that this is not the thing. So for you, when you have multiple options like that, like I know a lot of people are in transition right now, making decisions like job decisions, career decisions, family decisions. When you're in that, I mean, you talked about seeking the Lord. So what does that look like for you? I mean, do you also like have mentors in your life and people that you look up to, people that are further along than you when you're making big decisions like that?
Yeah. And especially for those of us who are married, we have to remember that while our church or our ministry or our talent, like there's a covering in that, but that our spouses are ultimately our first covering. And I think that when we get married, we know that. But then when big opportunities come or when things present themselves, I have to constantly remember that my husband is my first line of defense. So I will go to my husband and say, this has come up. This is the opportunity that I have to go here or to do that or to step into this. What is your heart saying about that? And he'll often say, well, let's pray and fast about that for a week. Or, well, what do what scriptures are jumping out to you right now? Or let's just take a day. And, he's the first person. And then I love the scripture in Timothy where it's talking about who's your Lois and who's your Eunice. So I have people who I mentor and I have people who mentor me. And that's usually when I get another opportunity like that, I have 5 women that are on a group text, and I'll text them all and say, hey guys, in June, I have the opportunity to go to the Immerse conference and speak and lead worship with Ascension. And I really am just seeking the Lord as if this is the thing, like, what am I supposed to talk about? And should I even go? And those women are on it in like a heartbeat. So once my husband says, run with it, then I submit to my mentors and say, okay, guys, this is the opportunity. What are your thoughts on that? And they never tell me not to do something or to do something, but they are the ones who will be like, well, my spirit feels a little bit. And some of them are like, run,
Yeah.
So it just confirms maybe too, for some of us, like we talked about the hesitancy to say no. Sometimes the greatest gift that the Lord can give us are those spiritual coverings to say, hey, I don't have a good check in my spirit about that. And then you're able to be like, okay, it wasn't just me. Right. It's like spiritual checks and balances.
Yes, definitely. I've seen that too. And so I love that you have a group text of your ladies that you trust and people that know you and they want what's best for you. And so, they're going to seek the Lord with you and give you good advice. And so it has to come from people that you do trust. But I'm really glad that you brought up like talking with your husband first, because they do have a different perspective. They see us behind the scenes like all the time, and they know, how much we put into this. And so a lot of times I know my husband is really good at saying no. And so he's like, do you need me to say no about something? Like, are you asking me so I will say no so you don't have to?
Yes.
And so my dad was like that too. Before I got married, I would take things to him, and sometimes he would say no for me. But I'm learning to say no for myself before I get in too deep.
Yeah.
But it's good to have that, like you said, just to check in and see, you know, does this make sense? Am I thinking through everything? Is there any red flags that maybe I didn't notice because I'm too close to the situation or too emotional about it? Or, like you said, just having a couple different people to bounce it off of, like even just talking it out with a friend, or like I'll call my mom and talk through things. I'm like, okay, now that I've said it out loud, I think I know what to do. And she's like, glad to help.
Yeah, I know. And our hearts are like so deceptive, because we do kind of lean towards emotion or feelings before, as women, I think sometimes we want to help people, but we get excited. I mean, I just know that I would go to Siberia if I had a reason to be excited about going to Siberia, right? But I wouldn't think about how am I going to get there, and what am I going to do, and where am I going to stay, and how much is it going to cost? Like, I'm just like, I'm going to Siberia, like, you know,
like I'll just figure it out.
Yeah. And you need those people. And, you know, I remember a mentor of mine saying, if you don't know who to call to ask these things, think about 2 or 3 people in your life who have been 100% trustworthy in all things in your life. And for a lot of us, we would have to go back to almost like people from our childhood, like friends of our parents and people that we grew up in church with, or grandparents, because that is hard to find people who have not, you know, told our secrets, or had a wrong motive about telling us to do something or not do something. And so I don't want to say that finding a sage is a good or is an easy thing. You know, finding a mentor is easy, because it's not. I do feel like it's super intentional. There's a book that I can give you guys the name to by one of our pastors, Daniel Grothy, because he reached out to Eugene Peterson, who wrote the Message Bible, and asked him to be his mentor. And 3 years later, he says yes. And Daniel talks so much about how important it is to have these spiritual parents in our lives, but it is intentional. It's calling them up and saying, can I put you on this text thread as someone I trust to help me make big decisions as God is leading me in ministry? And so I would just say, anybody listening to this, don't feel bad if you don't have anyone, because it is a little awkward. It's like asking somebody on a date. But I know as girls have reached out to me in the last couple of years, now that I'm not a child anymore, I am so honored when people trust me with their journeys. And I know that when I've asked, women have been honored that I've asked them. So don't be intimidated by the ask. We all need people to take this journey with us and to help us, because I think a lot of us are going to be stepping into some really cool things once we're all set free. And I do think we're going to want to say yes to everything, because we're going to be excited. But I think, like you said, mapping it out, knowing the timing of it, being responsible, drawing those boundaries is just as important coming out as it was before, right?
Yeah, and if we don't want to go back to exactly how things were,
exhaustion.
Too, I mean, if we were exhausted and stressed all the time, we don't want to jump right back into that, because life gets so busy so quickly. And so I think having that time to really plan out what you can, like have a direction and know what your goals are, it's really helpful, because then you can measure and weigh and say, is this going towards my goal or not? And like you said earlier, like it might have been where before you could do a lot of things for free, but now you need to be paid. And so you might have to change the conversation or change how you present things. Or like you said, don't say yes until you know all the details. You don't want to say yes and then realize, oh, this is a volunteer thing, and I actually, have to have my expenses paid. And so I think it is a lot easier to say no at the beginning, just right away, instead of saying yes and then having to back out. That's like the worst feeling.
It is. And also remembering that when we say no to something, we're opening it up a yes for someone else. And I think that as we grow in ministry, we realize there's a whole generation coming up behind us who they need to do the free things. They need to do the events where they're going to not have a sound system and not have a sound guy. And they're going to have to load in and learn how to work with difficult rooms and new people. And when we say no to something, we're opening up an opportunity for somebody else to say yes. And it might feel painful to say no to that, but then I just think about the eternal repercussions in the good way, like the benefits of what happens when we are obedient to the Lord and leave that space open for someone else to step into. And so we may not ever know what that looks like until we get to heaven. But as I even say no to things at New Life that allow other girls under me and other worship leaders under me to step into those things, I can mentor them through it, but to watch them execute it is beautiful. So I just think we need to know that just because we say no doesn't mean that the thing isn't going to happen. As a matter of fact, it could be done and open. It
might be better.
And open up a ministry for somebody that didn't even know they had a ministry. So I think our no's are just as beautiful as our yeses when they're led by the Holy Spirit.
Oh, that's so true. I love that so much. It's so freeing.
Yes.
I know when I started having kids, like I had an earlier bedtime for them, so I couldn't do things in the evening as much. So I started recommending friends of mine who would do a good job, that would show up. And so I was connecting them with someone who would do a good job. And then I didn't have to be the one to be there, but I did help. And so I realized it doesn't have to be done by me, but even if I could just point people in the right direction or pass it on to the next person, you know, they're going to figure it out and they'll have somebody. So it doesn't all have to be done by me.
No. And I think what you said earlier about it's easier to say no up front than it is to do it later. I think that's such a huge thing to think about, because in the past 5 years, as I've matured, and believe it or not, from 35 to 40, you'll learn a lot. I know people think once you hit 30, you're like smooth sailing, but I'm telling you, 35 to 40 is where I really started to hold myself accountable to some bad habits that I had. And some bad habits that I had were committing to things because they were all good things. And then getting about a year or two into things and realizing, oh my gosh, I can't maintain this. And rather than just having honest conversations with people and saying, look, it's too much. We just moved our family cross country from Ohio to Colorado. You know, I didn't realize at the time that this was all going to be going down. I just tried to keep on going and try to fake it till I make it. And the truth is, guys, is that all of that gets exposed if it's not something the Lord wants our hands in. And so I agree, like, it's just good to have a good way of communicating with people, to know, like, it's better to hear from you, this isn't working, than to keep on trying to do something and doing it halfway or through exhaustion. And so if you've come into quarantine exhausted and now you have lots of energy, ask yourself what you came in with that you're not supposed to come out with. And there may be 2 or 3 things that you were doing in February and March that the Lord does not want us doing in June and July. But it would be easier to have that conversation now than to re-exhaust ourselves come fall. Right?
Yeah, that's so good. Just to kind of audit our schedules, audit our commitments, and say, okay, what do I want to go back to, and what is not the right fit anymore? Maybe it was, but now it's not. And I feel like I'm a totally different person coming out of quarantine than going into it. And so I've learned so much and I've changed. And so, you know, I'm having to make adjustments as well looking forward. And I think all of us are. Yeah. So anyone that's like in this transition of figuring out what's next and saying yes, what to say yes to, what to say no to, I think that's really good wisdom of just figuring out, is this something that I want to continue doing even though I was committed before? Now it seems like everything's up in the air.
It is. And it's
so now is a good time for transition, actually, if it needed to be made anyway.
Oh, yes. And I think people are going to be so gentle with one another too. I think people are going to be willing to hear us in a different way. I think we're going to be a little more graceful with one another. I think people are going to be in transition across the board. So this is almost like a hall pass to be able to just say, hey, that was working for me in February, but now that I'm looking ahead, I don't feel that it's going to benefit any of us if I continue at this pace. And I even think that for my kids, I'm looking at all the things they were involved in. I'm looking
so busy.
Yes. And I'm like, no, we didn't need to be doing like all those things and stuff. So yeah, I think the Lord's going to give us clarity if we're asking him what do you want me to pick up and what do you want me to shake off? I think he's going to tell us. If he hasn't already.
Yeah. What a way to get clear on that. It's just like, I was talking to my mom the other day and I said, it feels like we're in a timeout. It's like, go sit in the corner, think about what you were doing,
Yes.
and then come back to me. And
Yes.
so, like another parenting analogy, I realized that the Lord's teaching me so much through parenting. And so it's like, this is a time to reset, to rethink, to reevaluate. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And so I think it's good for people to hear conversations like this.
Yeah.
Because then you realize it's normal, and like there's freedom in figuring out what you want to keep doing and what you want to stop doing.
Exactly.
And you don't have to try to keep it up and do all the things.
I saw this meme that said, if you don't come out of quarantine with a new skill or a new hobby or whatever, then time was never your issue. And I might got what that meme was saying, but it also felt a little bit condemning because I mean, the truth is
a little judgmental.
Yeah, this isn't vacation, right? Like, we're not, like, this was a pandemic. Like, this isn't, like, we're all homeschooling now. Like, if you have kids, and some of us lost jobs, and some are furloughed, and some are working from home and trying to do all the things. And what I realized, like, if the only thing we take away from this time was that we now know what we are supposed to release and what we are supposed to grab hold of, and if our walk with the Lord is vibrant and we can hear him, then we're fine. Like, what a gift it has been, right? Yeah. And so I think that that's important to hear too, is if you didn't write 100 songs, if you didn't write a book, if you didn't produce anything, if you didn't, create a band or whatever you thought you were going to do during quarantine. I painted baseboards, but
like our houses might be a little cleaner.
Yeah. But like, if we didn't come out doing anything, if all we did was abide, then that is a beautiful thing. And I pray we all leave even more connected to the vine than we were when we came in. And that's been my heart. Yes. As I speak to girls who are like, well, I just don't feel like I've been productive or anything. I'm like, yeah, but do you know the Lord? And does he know you? Do you know his voice? And does he know yours? Then I'd say it's been a good quarantine.
Yes. And then, like you said, being connected to the vine, then the fruit of that is going to come out later. You're going to have so many songs that come out of this, and so many projects, so many thoughts, so many connections. Like, the fruit of this time, this is like the growing season when we've been planted and we're in the dirt and we're like, it's dark, I can't see anything, I don't feel it. And then the bloom comes later, when you're reaping the harvest of those things. So the things that are done in secret right now are the things that are going to move us forward. I really believe that.
Yeah. And it's going to be good. I was looking at I wrote this on Facebook the other day, but I was looking at my tulips, and my tulips had not bloomed yet, but the whole neighborhood, all the tulips are out. And
everyone else's tulips are blooming.
I was looking at my tulips like, what is wrong with you? What is going on? And then I realized, like, my tulips aren't in competition with the tulips 2 doors down. Yeah. They have no idea.
They've got their own timeline.
That's right. Their job is simply to respond to the season. And our job as believers is to simply respond to the seasons that the Holy Spirit is asking us to walk through. And we've survived hail and storms, and we come back every year. We're those perennials that just keep coming back every year. And we bloom at different times, but we bring beauty all the same, right? We bring beauty regardless. And so I think some of us are going to see beauty. We saw beauty at the front end. Some are going to see it in the middle, and some are going to see it at the end. And some of us will see it 6 months from now, but none of this will be wasted if we just stay planted,
Yes, that is so true. So good. Thank you so much for sharing some encouragement, some wisdom today.
Absolutely.
I love catching up with you and hearing some more of your story, and just like continuing this conversation of what's going on right now. I think it's really helpful. So I appreciate you sharing. Can you tell me, where's the best way for people to connect with you online, see what you're doing, and get in touch with you?
Yeah. Okay. So I have Facebook and Instagram. So Facebook is just under Natalie Thomas Runion, and Instagram is under Natalie_Runion. And then I also have a ministry called Raise to Stay, which is for people who are in the ministry or have been raised in the ministry or raising children in the ministry. And it's just a way for us to stay, like we're talking about, connected to the vine, encourage one another. So you can follow Raise to Stay on Instagram and Facebook as well.
That's awesome. Thank you, Natalie. I appreciate your time today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Talk to you soon.
Hey, don't forget to sign up for my Confident Songwriter Challenge. It's absolutely free, and there's a link in the description you can click to join today. It's a free challenge for songwriters to help build your confidence and to show up at your best, because perfection is overrated. Make sure to sign up today by going to rusticsongbird.com/challenge, or just click the link in the description below, and I'll see you in the challenge. Thank you for watching this behind the scenes episode of the Rustic Songbird Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and I want to invite you to subscribe to this YouTube channel for even more videos like this coming soon. Also, check out the whole archive of previous podcast episodes by going to rusticsongbird.com/podcast. All right, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.